2 years ago, Andrew Thurgood was sent to prison. He was sentenced in Clark County to serve 3 years for driving a stolen car. After just a few months behind bars, though, Thurgood was murdered. Today, there are still no suspects, no arrests, and for Thurgood's father, no closure. Now, the case is at the center of a federal lawsuit with serious claims against Nevada's Department of Corrections. The story now in an 8 News Now exclusive.
Andrew was born here in Las Vegas, and he was your typical kid growing up.
They are glimpses.
These are just several pictures throughout his life.
Proof of Andrew Thurgood's life, from childhood to adulthood. His father, Marty, has them all, right to the very end.
Last fall, I have a picture of him at the funeral home.
That's your son after he was murdered?
This is after he was murdered at the funeral home. It'd be the last time I ever seen him.
Marty asked us not to use his last name. He says his son was a typical Vegas kid.
Proud to be his father?
Yeah, he was charming.
Who might have gone astray.
He wasn't a saint, but he didn't deserve what happened to him.
In 2015, Thurgood was sentenced to 36 months behind bars for driving a stolen car. He was sent to the High Desert State Prison north of Las Vegas. Marty remembers visiting his son and one of the last conversations they had.
When he first got into the prison, there was several people beating up an older guy, and he kind of stuck up for the guy, and I think that was towards the gang, and that's kind of how their conflict started.
Marty says his son was in trouble with the Aryan Warriors prison gang, which Thurgood used to belong to. Thurgood allegedly refused to give up an old nickname, and soon Marty believes the gang got retribution.
He knew that they were after him then.
When you say they?
The gang that's in the prison.
8 News Now obtained Thurgood's autopsy report from Clark County. February 1st, 2016, just before 2 in the afternoon. Prison video shows Thurgood walking into a cell with 2 other inmates. 6 minutes later, the door opens. The inmates drag out Thurgood's body. Quote, "They drop him on the ground, high-five each other, and tell the guards." An hour later, Thurgood was dead. He'd been stabbed and beaten. He was 26 years old.
The guards and this gang cooperated to have him murdered, to put him in a cell where he didn't belong.
No one has been charged.
It's been over 2 years. They know the 2 assailants that murdered him, and they still haven't been charged with murder. They haven't been charged with anything.
Marty's claims are part of a federal lawsuit filed last month against Nevada's Department of Corrections, 2 of its officers, and 2 inmates. Broadly, it alleges prison staff and 2 Aryan Warriors leaders conspired to lure Thurgood into an area he should not have been in and let him be murdered. The lawsuit alleges it's part of an unholy alliance officers and inmates have at High Desert to keep relative peace and, in some cases, impose justice.
And I think the public should know what's really going on in the prison system.
What is really going on in the prison system?
Corruption.
We've been looking into this case since it was filed back in April, and at that time, both inmates that Marty claims killed his son were still behind bars. But that's no longer the case. The Department of Corrections says while one of those inmates is still behind bars, the other one has been released, and no charges have been filed.
The Aryan Warriors are notorious within Nevada's prison system. 10 years ago, 14 members were indicted as part of a federal racketeering case alleging corruption between the prison gang and the state's prison system. Nevada's DOC has gone to great lengths to clean up its act. New leadership was put in place a few years ago, though observers say the organization is still decades behind other states in prison reform.
It's part of my life now.
As for the murder of Thurgood, the DOC says it remains unsolved. The department would also not answer any questions on the case, except to say it's still under investigation. Marty demands justice.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, my son's dead. I have nothing else to go on. People should know this.
Late last week, the Department of Corrections finally responded to our requests for comment. A spokesperson said staff changes have led to the delay in charges being filed with the Attorney General's office. The spokesperson also said she was unaware one of the inmates involved had been released.